So of course what we need to do to get started, and to be fair, I don't know if the microphone's gonna pick me up very well, so I'm gonna talk a little bit louder and kind of sound like a crazy person. But hopefully you can hear me a little bit better in the recording because of it. So what we need to do is actually start the overlay process between these. So we need to actually scan these documents. So in my case, did anybody bring theirs from what they just pinned up? Can you put it on the ground real quick so I can take pictures?
Music or
All of it.
all of them?
Those two are front. A little bit more flat. That's why you always go on the back side of your paper. Thank you, ma'am. Let me send that to my computer real quick. Send that one as well. So theoretically, these would both be your scans, both of your instrument diagram and your other diagram. Now, what we actually need as well is the site. So in our case, we'll need Google Earth. Sorry, I don't have my keyboard set up. And we'll go to San Pedro Springs Park, which is of course a map of one of the old construction documents of that park. Now, some interesting facts about this park is it's supposedly one of the oldest places in Texas, actually. They claim that there used to be dinosaurs there, but funny enough, has anybody ever looked into like dinosaur footprints? Have you ever noticed they're always the same amount of compression into the ground? When a heavier animal should make a bigger impression of thrust, right? Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. But let's actually take a look at this site because we'll need a couple things from this site. And to be fair, it might be just easier on taking a look at it from here. So first thing we need here, we'll talk about the first diagram. So the first thing that I need to do this weekend, and I might need to actually go to the site myself, especially how many of you guys have been to San Pedro Park? Good, at least a few of us, absolutely. So you might want to actually, the first diagram is fairly simple, right? We just need to make it to scale, and that's fairly easy. I'm about to show that right now. But I also want to start to decide where things go, right? So you'll see, actually the assignment, it says that I need a certain selection, right? In fact, on the site selection diagram, it says a red square that is either 192 by 192 feet or 192 by 288. So if I have a long piece, I might need a bigger selection, right? So that 12 by 18, of course, what I did there was essentially I times it by 16. That way we can make these at 1/16 scale, right? And we're actually gonna stay at 1/16 scale the whole project. So we don't have to confuse anybody with crazy conversions and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing that I wanna do here is actually find 192 feet by 192 feet. Just because I've already kind of given it away for you, right? I could have just said, I need this at 1/16, but I didn't want to confuse anybody. So I said exactly 192 by 192 feet. So the first thing that we could do there is of course the measurement tool. In our case, we can add some points. I might need to, of course, zoom in a little bit. But for, you know, let's see, 192, it's a pretty big amount of space. Perfect. To be fair, that's really all I need, right? Say done. Now I don't want to exit this because I'm going to need that shape, right? And basically all I need to do here is get a screenshot of the whole thing. Kind of want to line it up a little bit. Looks pretty nice. And a screenshot will be Control Shift number 3. And I got myself a little screenshot. that's fine there. As you can see, that's exactly what I need, and great, you know, it's a screenshot. We'll open it up in Photoshop. Done. But what's important is now we have that line so that we can start to understand what 192 is, right? Now, to be fair, the first diagram, you'll notice it's not to any scale. It just says pick a selection and make it red. So let's do that first. Fairly simple in Photoshop. So I'm going to start with a new file. And in my case, I'm going to stick to an 11 by 17 for now, right? You can basically assume that both of these are eventually going to be the paper that they will be. To be fair, for Wednesday, you don't have to print these, right? They'll be placed on Miro, and we'll talk about them digitally. After all, you already made them digitally. Why print it out and do that process all over again, right? However, now, at least in this assignment, we're going from analog to digital. So scanning it and getting it into Photoshop, right? First diagram, you know, I'm gonna keep it 11 by 17. Go ahead and create and open up some of those images. So place, embedded, and let's basically get that image that we just established. Pretty sure I put it in downloads. I got, oh, that's the wrong image. Those are my photos of Jerusalem's. Where did I put my screenshots? Are they on the desktop? That was yesterday. Where the hell are my screenshots going? Oh, is it downloads? There we go, screenshot, share videos. And there's the one I'm looking for. Oh man, that's the other side. I don't need that one. And this is where it helps to definitely have a keyboard. Let's try that again. The other one, obviously it takes a screenshot of both screens, okay? In my case, I don't need all of this, I just need the part. So, I'm gonna say done. Sweet. I'm gonna take that piece and of course crop it, right? I could also just take the selection tool. What I wanna keep is of course that part. And I can select the inverse or click this little button right here. Selects the outside of it. I can hit the eraser tool or the letter E. Usually I hit the letter E, but I don't have my tool right now. And basically just get rid of it. Right? Get rid of the parts I don't need. E is an elephant for eraser. But that's looking pretty good, and like I said, you know, I could still further transform it. Man, I didn't realize how much I use a keyboard when I do this. Command D to deselect. And then you would do Command T to transform it, or maybe I just kind of start to memorize all of these. So you can also transform. You can warp it, not exactly what I wanted.
This is all under Google Maps?
We're in Photoshop now.
Yeah, but that's from Google Maps.
But yeah, that's a screenshot from Google Maps. Absolutely. Keep in mind it's recording, guys. You can pause it, watch it, and of course, apply the same. Now, in our case, what we need to do is actually make a red square. So let's make that a little bit bigger and just kind of take up the contents of the page just because, well, it doesn't need to be to scale. And that already represents 192 by 192. Sorry, I don't have my, obviously hard to do this just for the first time, but a little confusing. I'll make it work. But we've got that done, and essentially all we need is a red square. So I'm gonna fake it till I make it, or I can hold Shift to get a perfect square. Right now it's not a perfect square, so if I hold Shift, you see that it becomes a perfect square. And pretty much done. I'll use my brush tool, so just a regular brush tool. I'll come down here and select the color green, or sorry, red. I'll kind of give it a little bit of transparency, right? I maybe don't want, you know, too much whiteness or, you know, you can definitely adjust the mix and things like that. Another thing is, well, you can just right click and change the hardness too, right? So you can kind of draw it in like I am, right? Or if you don't want to sit there all day, just get a big swath. Man, it like really looks like color in there. Hold up. That is not what I wanted. Anyway, although it looks really darn cool. Oh, it went into a mixer brush. That's cool. That's cool. I'm not exactly a painter though. So let's try a different brush type. Ah, there's our problem. Let's just use a regular soft brown brush. And for me, I kind of like to have it that transparent look. So again, something like that. And it really starts to identify our section. However, if that's a little too much, you can control the opacity of it. So if we do it on actually our own layer, let's try that again. Undo. We'll actually make a new layer, and that will be our brush component. That way, if we do want to change it up a little bit, I can always change that actual piece. Right? That way I can still see what's underneath, right? And that's it. That's the first diagram, right? Essentially, file, save as JPEG, put that on there, right? And then of course be able to explain why you chose that spot. So again, this might require, I don't know, a little field trip also either Saturday or Sunday. However, keep in mind, we'll have a work day on Monday and we'll be working in here on Monday. So we'll probably take our stuff over there. So, you know, if you got all your box stuff and things like that, you might want to leave it in the car for studio on Monday, right? Wear some closed-toed shoes. Doesn't look like a problem today. So we're good there. So we got the first diagram. Let's talk about the second diagram. So file, new. In my case, I already know the size of my paper. In Jerusalem's case, it was a 12 by 12, correct? Sweet. So let's type in 12 by 12. Yeah, this thing really needs like a keyboard right here. That would be great. Anyway, 12 by 12, create, sweet. So let's get those two images that I took a photo of. Now, keep in mind, please don't take a photo of your drawings. Scan them, give them the due diligence and justice they deserve. In my case, I'm gonna have to like kind of fake it till I make it a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the two that I put on my downloads. So there's one. Sweet. And place embedded. Number 2. So I just need to refine these a little bit real quick. And we'll get it as close as possible. Fake it till we make it. We'll inverse select, right? That way I can erase the other side. And I did not realize how much I use the keyboard. Learning something new every day. Yeah, I'll take that piece. No, don't stamp it. Erase it. Eraser tool. Okay. Oh, I'm supposed to erase it. Interesting. I have to use the eraser of the pen to actually erase. Anyway, I'm learning every day too, guys. Okay. We'll turn off the background. Of course, we got that one. Just in case you're, I don't know if I've gone over this. I've gone over it so many times, I don't know who I've told. But we can go to adjustments, curves. Now it's not going to do anything because it's not selected. So I have to select the other side. Select inverse. Now it's selected the photo itself. So I'll go to image, adjustments, curves. I'll select my white dropper tool and I'll make it better. I think I have shown you guys, right? Okay, good. But yeah, of course we need to apply that and make it look a little nicer. To be fair, honestly, your scans will look better. You probably don't even have to do this part. So, not a big deal there. But that's looking pretty good so far. Let's, of course, fix the other one. Just in case you find yourself in the exact same boat. And you end up just having to take a picture of it this weekend. That's fine. Let's take that piece and erase the rest. Oh. Well, there you go. We'll get rid of that piece. We'll deselect it. And now we at least have our 2 layers. Did I make that red dot? What is that? Is that part of my photo?
I don't know.
There's no red dot on yours, right? It's fine for today, but I mean, obviously no red dots. I feel like I accidentally did that, but anyway, hopefully there's not something wrong with the screen. What was I doing? Oh yeah, curves. White, fix it up a little bit. Really fixes it up a little bit, doesn't it? Sweet. Yeah, I guess it's part of, oh, it's the reflection of the light in the photo. You get, you know, when you know, you know. Anyway, so we got both of our pieces. And in fact, the next thing that I could even start to do is even change the opacity and start to see them together, right? To be fair, that is way easier, in my opinion, than doing that analog, right? Constantly trying to see it and get it just right. But essentially, we want to make a new diagram. And there's an example actually at the bottom where we want to incorporate the site into that 192 by 192. So we're going to need another screenshot. All right, we'll go to our area, and now we'll take a screenshot of this 192 by 192, right? Of course, I want to make it flat, get it pretty close, and again, I could take a screenshot and really dial it in. Sweet. And that'll actually be my side for this piece. Now, I'd want to keep it at 12 by 12. So as you can see, I still need to get it back onto here. So I'm going to take both of my layers. I'm going to unlock both of those. What? I can't just select both layers? Anyway. Pretty sure we can just drag and drop these. Yep. Okay, we got one. What the hell? I got like rid of the other. Oh, there it is. And we'll take that one and drag it right into that piece. So at least we have all of our pieces ready to go. Last thing that we need is that 192 by 192. So I'll take that screenshot that I made, Photoshop, place embedded, and we'll go ahead and find it. Sweet. And there it is. Now, how do I make this exactly 192 by 192 at 16 scale? It's got to be the same size as my 12 by 12 paper. I almost nailed it. Obviously, I did that one by eye. So I'm going to have to extend it a little bit. Fake it till I make it. Does this give me ever say that?
Yeah, I did today.
He taught me that. Anyway. So that's looking pretty good. We'll click on the outside or we'll click done. That's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and put it at the bottom. That way I can start to make a diagram out of this, right? Of course, it won't go to the bottom. There we go. So we get a couple of layers there. I might need to actually add a little bit more transparency to these. Right, and we're starting to get this kind of phenomenal diagram. However, you may notice there's a lot of white stuff and it's really drowning out, right? So if I accidentally drown it out too much, well, now I can't even see what's in the piece, right? So I'm gonna keep that actually at 100%, actually all of them at 100%. And instead I'm gonna right click or double click on the layer. I'm gonna go to blending options. I'm gonna select multiply. And I'm gonna make sure that the white point is kind of addressed. Usually you don't have to move it. In some cases you do. Usually you can kind of tell essentially what's gonna happen here. But if I press OK, and start moving that particular piece around, you'll notice now the white is completely transparent. Let's go ahead and do that to the other layers. Double click, blending options. I'm going to select multiply instead and move my white point just a bit. Again, last but not least, this one, multiply. Now I can actually see the background, right? And now the white space is being considered transparency, right? So I might want to line up some things, right? For instance, I may have actually selected this particular piece so that, well, I notice my sidewalk and some of the curvilinear elements that I chose even sort of kind of harmonize, right? Now, to be fair, I can even change the size, right? They don't necessarily have to be the same. Now, obviously, it doesn't correlate too well, but maybe there's something with this sidewalk that I can correlate with. That's pretty interesting. I'll leave it there for now. What about this one? I might want to rotate it, transform it. Sorry. Let's just lock that one. We can use this, our little lock right here. Lock it. We'll move on to the next layer. That way we can move stuff. Can't even see that one. There's nothing in that layer. Go figure. Anyway. So we'll take each of those three pieces. That one's of course locked. That guy right there. Oh my god, let me move you. Oh. Why? Okay. Okay. There it is. So we'll take that piece. Okay, there we go. But what's nice is you can either make it bigger or smaller. I wouldn't go outside the page, right, because it kind of starts to ruin the diagram. So smaller is kind of the go-to there, right, if you will. But we can start to essentially make a new diagram. Now, to be fair, this isn't mine, so I might, I don't want to solve too many answers, but I don't want to leave you like, well, that's what he did in the tutorial. I don't do my tutorials so that you copy me. I do the tutorials so that you can understand the tools and how to use them, right? To be fair, I hope that Jerusalem's doesn't look like this, and that she finds actually a little bit more relatance between her parts. As we imagined, you can actually see a little bit of why this diagram needs to be a little bit more complete, because there's not so much to align to yet, right? In our case though, however, the sidewalk is pretty interesting with that grid element, or maybe I even, dare I say, align the grid to some of the grid-like elements that I'm seeing there. Might take that one back just a bit. Of course, I have to unlock it to do anything to it, but can further blend that in. Last but not least, I need one more thing. In order to, of course, be a site analysis, it would need to have some sort of incorporation of where the sun is, right? And I'll talk about this a little bit more on Monday when we actually go to the site, because most of us just kind of understand. Well, let me ask you this. Where does the sun rise? Every single day. Okay, what about in Australia? Still east. Good. That was a trick question. Right. A lot of people go, no, it's the right. Right? Anyway. They're upside down. Anyway. This time next year, will the sun be in the exact same location? Correct. It'll be in the exact same location. Right? Actually, it's kind of weird. The only parallax that seems to exist is some people call it a great year, which is a 26,550 year cycle, right? Into which the constellations, which by the way have never changed in millennia, right? The same 12 disciples are following the sun. I mean, constellations are following the sun of God, right? That story seems to be repeating itself in a lot of different cultures because, well, they're literally just talking about the sky, right? However, to get a little bit more scientific with it, and a little bit easier for ourselves, there's a wonderful site called SunCalc. So I'll type in SunCalc as in calculator. and of course the first one. How many of you guys have ever heard the term celestial sphere? Nobody? Maybe a little bit, right? It's basically the idea of your vision and how we would navigate and how the ancients used to navigate, right? Essentially, we would line a angle to Polaris, which is a pole star. Anybody know what Polaris is? The North Star, yeah. And it never moves, right? So interesting enough, we can actually create a relationship and a diagram, which is actually what you're looking at right now, for this celestial sphere, right? Now, the way we understand a celestial sphere is a flat, level plane with basically a dome around it. And essentially, like a trackball wheel or like a hamster inside of a wheel, as we move on the Earth, of course, so does this celestial sphere. It's a projection map, right? But a very useful tool for it is actually understanding the zenith angle of the sun, the position of the sun, and to be fair, at all times of the year. After all, the sun is that one element in architecture that we can't change. And of course, Ellis knows that now because I'm almost repeating myself from intro class, right? But essentially, the yellow area that you're looking at is every position of where the sun will be, right? At least in terms of its angle compared to this little middle area. You guys see that sort of little middle area? That's actually what this diagram is about, and it represents where we're standing. So, don't get me wrong, we can only zoom in so much into San Antonio. So, wow, I didn't even know I could turn like that. Stop it!
Mine's going crazy.
It's something to do with this pen. It's really weird, like, I can't zoom it. It's not super important. To be fair, we'd have to change a really great distance for the sun to actually start changing a little bit more. So, to be fair, that's fine for today. But I might need a screenshot of it. And what's really interesting too is, man, get out of this. Get out.
What the heck is raining for?
Oh my God.
It's raining literalmente.
Hold on. I just restart the page. Oh my God. So you have this slider at the top that even starts to show us what's going on. So at 7 a.m., that's when there's light, right? And this will be the exact same angle as it is outside. So now we have this really interesting diagram that starts to represent where the sun is at all times of year. So we want to put that into our diagram. After all, we're analyzing the site. So at least our first thing to analyze is the sun, right? In our case, as it goes across the day, right? You may have noticed in wintertime, there's not a very big arc over here. You guys see kind of, has Escamine explained this at all? He's usually the one to kind of go about it. But you may notice that this line or this arc is shorter than this one. This line represents, anybody get it? The summer solstice, right? June 21st. The sun doesn't go any farther, right? But look how close the sun is to you. Is it hotter during the summer? Is the sun out longer during the summer? It works. What about the winter? We have winter solstice, or honestly, the reason we celebrate Christmas. December 21st is actually the day where the sun goes away for 3 days and resurrects. Huh, that story sounds familiar too. Interesting. Maybe the ancients were just talking about literally the sky. I'm not trying to be sacrilegious. I'm quite the theologian myself. Anyway. But interesting, we have a map of exactly every position and the angles, right? That starts to become really important. Now, the last thing to know and to understand is that this circle represents the horizon, in which where the land will meet the sky, right? Not physically, but apparently, right? So as you rise up, right, in altitude, of course, that changes a little bit, but we use the horizon for just about everything, right? To establish our celestial views, right? Anyway, you've gotten a small introduction, right, to at least sun and the sun diagram. Now, to be fair, I could screenshot this and I could spend a lot of time trying to get the map out of the background. Or I could just type in San Antonio sun chart. I'm going to go to images. And for the most part, I kind of want to get kind of the same sun calc, but I'm not finding it. Let's take that, copy. Let's actually try Google.
Dang it, that's a Seattle picture. That one's good.
I'm feeling lucky. But relatively speaking, yeah, there it is. That's what I'm looking for. Now, of course, this is not San Antonio. There's a lot of light in this one, right? That yellow, again, represents the position of the sun at every day of the year, right? So don't get me wrong, we might have to fake it till we make it. We might have to trace it. To be fair, this is actually what you're looking at from a top view. Where'd you find that?
On the same website.
Same website? That's exactly what I'm looking for.
San Antonio, Texas, sunrise. The first one, yeah.
Sweet.
And then you can plug in the dates.
There it is. And actually, I think if you right click on this one, you can even kind of take it out as an image. But again, this is a lot easier to manipulate, right? And to get that phenomenal transparency, right? So let's get it. I don't know if I can just save as like that. Seems like an actual thing, like it's being calculated. But we can actually get a lot of information from the site. I would bookmark it, right? You'll be definitely asked to get this information in D2, so that's why we're briefly going over it. I'm not going to quiz you over it. I'm not going to have a test over it, but it should be involved in this diagram, and it should be somewhat understood, right? Especially since we're talking about it now. However, let's just get a screenshot of it for today. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and screenshot that guy.
But yeah, just that.
Perfect.
Just that one, or we can use like other.
Just
the
need that.
bottom one.
And actually, you get a lot more information on this guy too, right? Rather than just sun calc. I like sun calc because I can go to anywhere in the earth and look at where the sun should be. However, it's not 100% right. In fact, last year on June 8th, strangely enough, 98% of the Earth had sunlight, which doesn't even make sense. Anyway, but it did. It experienced more sunlight. For some reason, it was daytime for everybody.
We had night.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it gets kind of weird. Instagram blocked the hashtag 2suns or anything to do with the sun, and people were claiming last year that they saw 2 suns. It's a little bit weird, and you probably didn't hear about it because, well, they're not going to televise the revolution, right? But it is interesting because I saw it too, actually, and I was like, is it a reflection? Like, what's going on here, right? It was kind of like a shadow of the sun. It was very weird. I did actually happen to get it recorded, and my daughter saw it as well. But interesting enough, 98% of the Earth was covered in daylight on June 8th of last year, or maybe it was July 8th. It's one of those two. Anyway, that being said, let's get this diagram also in here as well. So I'm going to File, Place Embedded, and get that screenshot. So far, so good. Well, you know, doesn't have to be too big, but it should really be somewhat center justified with your document. After all, we kind of want to see all of these layers put together, right? That way we can start to understand, well, you know, on the west side, right? On the west side of this diagram, is it hotter during the day here or here? What? At 6 in the morning, is it the same temperature as 6 at night? No. Especially during the summer and all this mud, it's like still out there, man.
We're dying in the west.
But this light is really nice in the morning. Right? It actually comes in and it even warms you up a little bit, especially when it's really freezing. Right? So don't get me wrong, this map doesn't change. So So it actually makes it easier for architects to understand what kind of light is going to get into our building. Now, you don't necessarily have a building yet, but you might actually realize that parts and elements of your diagram might even start to block. If I imagine they come up as vertical planes, just like Project 1. You guys know what I'm saying? Use your imagination for a little bit. This side has the opportunity to be blocking the sun, where this side has the opportunity to use the sun, right? Now I'm not going to tell you what we need it for yet, but I do want you to start to at least get this mapping on there so we can start to address it and we can start to talk about it, right? Because it could very well mean that, you know, I'll put it in the back for now, that what if these become gigantic walls? Well, that's great, but maybe it's actually over here so that it blocks the west sun. See what I did there? What if those are actually holes in the ground? Well, maybe I want them on the east side. That way, you know, they don't actually obstruct the good light. You see what I'm saying? Anyway, we're going to start having that conversation next week, but we need to incorporate it now and start understanding what the sun's doing, right? So in my case, let's say that's good. You know, I like the alignment of the circles and the dots. I like the alignment of the stripes and that wonderful curve. And, you know, this is looking good. So I'm going to take that piece. I'm going to further blend this. So I'm going to double click. I'm going to multiply it. And as you can see, now I really have to actually change this a little bit more. And it's going to get rid of a lot of stuff, eventually all of it, right? So I may need to slowly take it back. I just want that grid. I kind of want the yellow too. Stop getting rid of the yellow. I don't want that background. Keep the yellow. I think that's nice. We can get rid of this guy with some magic. If you have, you know, the latest version of Photoshop, you can right click on the eraser tool and click Magic Eraser Tool. Click on something, and usually it actually gets rid of it. Ooh, nice. So yeah, Magic Erase Tool, definitely where it's at. But that's looking pretty good, at least for what I need for Monday. Now I'm going to place it in the back, but you know, it's pretty overbearing and starting to take over the diagram. So again, I'm just going to show it very lightly. This is ready to go. It's actually technically to scale. It's 12 by 12, right? Each inch on here will represent 16 feet, right? So one thing I would say, this doesn't have to get any bigger, right? 192 feet by 192 feet is a very large area, right? Even for what we're about to make. And I will tell you a little bit about what it is on Monday. So I don't want you to worry about the design or anything like that. Really, this is more of a technical exercise. How do we start to display this information? How do we start to use these tools effectively, right? As you can see, I went over blending options. So double clicking on each layer and manipulating that. Of course, changing the opacity so that we can actually start to see those layers. We even started to incorporate the sun, which is a part of objective reality. And very important, we don't design stuff as an artist. The artist does not have to worry about being correct. Does that make sense? Whereas the architect has to worry about being artistic and speaking to the public, but also making it practical, making it useful. And in our case, especially in Texas, blocking that west sun, right? Or possibly using that sun to light up in the morning versus hide from the heat, actually. I can imagine a large structure where everybody just kind of chills underneath there because, well, it's super hot. What do you look for during the middle of August? Shade, right? If you're outside, nobody gets caught dead outside, right? You know what I mean? During August, you're like, stay in the shade, man, you know? But relatively speaking, this would actually conclude our second diagram. And to be fair, I've even built in a lot of the stuff with the scale. So as long as you're paying attention and keeping track that this is a 12 by 12 inch, you're already at scale. You're already at 1/16 scale. So that being said, I know we are 4 minutes past. I do appreciate you guys staying a little bit longer. But are there any further questions that I could go over right now? Lalo thinks he's got it. Does Lalo speak for the class?
I screenshot this.
Yeah, they're screenshotting.
Clearly he doesn't speak for Dubs.
My bad. I'm sorry.
You didn't speak for us.
Any questions, Lindsay? Got it fair? Oh. Get a real map. That was an error. You also have a smaller one. Oh, you need a small one. Any other questions, guys? Otherwise, stick around and ask me more questions.
Just screenshot it.
Oh my god. Google, how do I screenshot something?
No, just screenshot that. Reply.
Anyway, I'm gonna stop this recording for today and I'll get it uploaded so that you guys can view.